So, what's actually happening is not only are people in the modern day stuck in a sort of mental framework within themselves and within their own mental system, but now actually the algorithmic social media network is actually reflecting that and reinforcing it to an even stronger degree. And this doesn't affect everyone, but like I mentioned in my isolation episode, that people who are too deep in and people who aren't on social media just for laughs or who are getting valuable information, they're getting deeper into a sort of egoic self system that they don't even realize. They don't even realize because until they receive pushback, until they receive the opposite opinions of whatever beliefs they're being fed, they won't even realize the large, overwhelming truth that those things that they believe are just opinions. They are just beliefs. And social media has a way of shrinking the world into a sort of box where one can be convinced that the way they see the world is the way all reasonable people see the world. And this is dangerous because what happens when that sort of framework and those belief systems are fueled with hatred? What happens when they're fueled with deprivation, self shame, and all these sort of negative traits that maybe people already possessed, and now they have social media telling them why they should continue to keep possessing it and why it's the world or why it's a specific type of problem that is reinforcing them that truth. There's people who on social media will capitalize this on for views and for attention, and it's not the job of those people to convince you of anything. All they have to do is find you at a certain place in your life, or maybe possibly even at a certain time when you're scrolling, where they can reinforce the things that you were already thinking. And when that happens, your brain is very adapted to recognizing patterns. So when that happens, your brain is going to start linking beliefs with the proper evidence of what they're seeing visually. You could say in real life, well, it's social media, whatever it is, they're going to start linking the belief systems that are already rooted inside, and they're going to start linking those to the evidence, the supporting evidence that you're showing it on the outside. So this is the main sort of introduction trap into social media. And this is where it begins to further deepen the hole that this sort of ego and mental system already sort of come embedded with in life. There's already a sort of awakening that people need to already go through, embedded in the fabric of life, right? Like if you spend all your time believing you are your thoughts, you have to wake up from that. If you think your past defines you, you have to wake up from that. So there are these wake up calls that are already embedded in life. And now added on top, we have a social media algorithm that is furthering this framework to the point where now those beliefs, negative beliefs, aren't just existing, but they're actually being shown in a way where they are a factual part of reality. So, what happens when a false belief is treated like a fact? Misery, suffering. That's what happens. Self pity, self loathing, no growth, no evolution, staying in the comfort zone. That's what happens. That's the sort of intro trap into social media. And then, of course, we have the sort of comparison of what you're seeing in other people's lives, which is almost always fabricated because the point of social media is to get clicks and to get views to fuel engagement. And a post doesn't need to give the entire backstory. They just need to make you believe that whatever you're seeing is the truth of what's happening in reality. So now what happens again when we go back to the first problem? What happens when millions of people are viewing staged, fake, whatever else, sort of illusory scenes on social media? What happens? More people start to strongly reinforce these falsified narratives of how reality actually works. And that's the strongest trap, truly, because that can force someone into a really dark place. They can start to make assumptions of the world without even living in the world. They'll start to make assumptions about how reality unfolds and how it exists and the paradigms and systems of all of it. And they will only judge and make that opinion off of what they have seen on social media. So think about that in sort of all the stuff you see on social media. So if you're listening and you're maybe aware of what I'm saying and you're kind of aware of the traps that are set, um, you might say, okay, so what's the answer? Is the answer to get off social media? Well, the answer could be that, yes, but I think a more logical response is how do we meet ourselves where we already are? Or if you're a good, like a healthy account that's spreading sort of, good and useful information, how do I meet people where they're already at? I can't expect people to travel 10 miles to break systems and patterns that are extremely comfortable. But what I can do is I can meet them where they're at and show them a way out of the system in which they've created in their minds. And that's why the way out of social media sort of addiction, social media misery, isn't usually by going cold turkey and just abandoning social media, because you're going to feel very impulse to fill that sort of void that that dopamine was providing for you. So the answer actually may be, how do I start interacting and affecting my algorithm in a way where I'm actually benefiting from the time I spend on social media? And even from there, I will begin to slowly minimize how I spend my time on social media. You will be astonished at how quick your algorithm, your For You page, your search, explore page, you will be extremely surprised how quickly it will adapt. If you stop engaging with, they actually, I think on Instagram and maybe TikTok, I'm not sure, they actually have a not interested button. So all you have to do is be aware. Stop watching all of that stuff that is frying your brain. Stop watching all that stuff. I'm not even asking you or any other person to go into the woods and meditate for 10 days. Maybe we can get to that point, but it's not necessary. We can change the system, social media brain connected system, simply by bringing consciousness into it. We don't have to leave everything to find the power that exists in conscious action. We have to bring consciousness into these things. Press not interested on things you know are bad for you, and start liking informational topics that are of actual good use, educational topics, even if they're boring. Just like them, save them, interact with them, because that will keep the feed clean. That'll keep your feed. And this is an exact reflection of how our minds work, too. How can we possibly try to establish a deep and meaningful mindfulness practice where we're reserving our energy only for positive thoughts? And even then, thoughts are just thoughts, thoughts are just noise. We don't need any thoughts particularly. But how are we supposed to establish a deep psychological practice like that when we don't even realize that we're being consumed and influenced by the hundreds of videos we scroll through every day? If we can bring conscious action into something like that, it'll make bringing conscious action into the other areas of our lives much easier.